From News and Information 570 AM, this is the Stenchfield Report.
All right, real quick on that little girl who held up a stick gun and got suspended for a day. Brian in Fort Worth has some comments. Brian, what do you got?
Okay, Grant, school boards are generally the end-all, the beat-all, the decision makers on, how far a lot of this can go. And for the most part, people don't take the time to vote the right people in to these school boards. These people just don't wind up in the school board. They are elected. And if trying to take some due diligence and finding a little bit about candidates that are out there, and help a little bit.
Absolutely, Brian. It's a great point you make, because a school board member could have maybe even a more impact on your life and your children's life than maybe even your congressional candidate might have on your life. And so it is important. And great phone call, Brian. Thank you. And the reason he says that is that there's nobody votes for the school board. Even in the city of Dallas, a school board may get they win by 4,000 votes or something. Where that's all who's voting, and you got tens of thousands of people that should be voting, and 3,000 or 4,000 people will vote. It's crazy. All right, 888-787-KLIF, 888-787-5543. I do want to talk about constitutional carry. This is the absolute right that we have as citizens in America under the Second Amendment to carry a firearm with us. There is a push for constitutional carry, which would mean you don't need a permit to carry a firearm. That push is being undergone in in a bunch of states, including the state of Texas. Well, I lost it today. I don't know. Not today. I've been doing great. This show has been rocking and rolling great up until 6:30. Maybe it's because the program director just walked in. He just walks in. He threw me for a whole loop on this thing. Anyway, all right. Anyway, I do want to get to constitutional carry. Edwin Walker is an attorney for Texas Law Shield. They represent gun owners. And we want to talk about constitutional carry with him. Edwin, great to have you on the show.
Yes, sir. Great to be here.
Well, if there's any state that has a great chance of getting constitutional carry through, I would imagine it's the state of Texas.
Well, yes and no. Obviously, we have a tradition that sort of, a lot of people, in many ways it is firearms friendly. Certainly has the perception of being firearms friendly. But there are some entrenched factors here in Texas politics that do not want to see an expansion of gun law and gun rights. And, and we're kind of seeing that. The other day they had the hearings on 2 constitutional carry bills. Some people call them permitless carry bills, whatever you want to call it. At least they got a hearing, which the last legislative session there was a bill proposed. Didn't even get a hearing. Didn't even get a committee hearing.
Well, that's because of Joe Strauss. That is Joe Strauss, who's the Speaker of the House, who's a mealy-mouthed, wishy-washy Republican, if you even want to call him that, who leads the House chamber. And so this is him working with the Democrats to probably squash some of this stuff. If it gets a hearing and goes through, I think with the push right now today, with the world that we are living in, with a pro-gun president, with the power that the NRA, 5 million members of the NRA, gun owners across America getting a president elected, and now we see this giant push for national reciprocity to recognize concealed handgun license permits across the country universally. I think that people are more open to this kind of stuff than ever before.
I absolutely agree with that, and I don't know if you had an opportunity to catch any of the hearing, but the pro-gun folks obviously outnumbered the anti-gun folks, both in the folks who testified, which the hearing lasted almost 7 hours, both in the folks who testified and in the questions and comments and responses from the committeemen. There were 3 committee members who clearly were anti-gun, and they were what I would call the usual suspects. They were Democrats from heavily Democratic areas. But the Republicans, who are, in fact, in something that I had never seen before in a committee hearing, I don't know how often it happens, but one of the committeemen actually had registered as a witness himself. And at the end of the testimony, went down to the witness table and put his statement on the record as a witness.
Was that Jonathan Stickland?
No, it was not. So the Stickland wrote the bill, and so he gets to make a presentation at the meeting, but it was actually one of the members of the Homeland Security Public Safety Committee.
Interesting. So when you think about this, when you talk about constitutional carry, all right, which would give anybody in the state of Texas the right to carry a firearm, we already have open carry here in Texas, so it would give you the right to carry open or concealed, and without a permit, without having to go through a class. And so when you look at the Constitution of the United States, the Second Amendment is absolute. We have a right to keep and bear arms. In my opinion, that right is absolute. And if you are a strong gun owner, no matter what you say, I don't know how you take that right away by mandating a government tell you to take a class. And how ridiculous is it to think? Now, Edwin Walker, your group, Texas Law Shield, actually helps people that carry, right? And you guys defend people that carry in situations. And so here's the situation. And people are idiots to think that a 6 or 8 or even a 12-hour class is going to make someone proficient with their firearm 2 years later, 3 years later, 4 years later, 3 months later. Unless you're training on a daily basis, you're not going to be proficient. So why even bother with the permit process? What you're hoping is you have responsible gun owners that want to go out there, carry their firearms in a responsible manner because they want to keep themselves safe and in turn making the public safer. And in essence, the statistics have all proven that gun owners commit fewer crimes than even police officers, which is an awful low rate of crimes. And so you have very few problems with this. To me, constitutional carry makes sense.
Yes, sir. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And one of the most compelling arguments about constitutional carry is that Texas has always had a history of recognizing constitutional carry for long guns, rifles and shotguns. There's never been any regulation on who can carry or where you can carry, except for very, very limited areas. But you've been able to carry one in person, down the street, in your car, what have you. Obviously, with regard to handguns, 10 years ago, the legislature approved for unlicensed individuals to carry a handgun in their automobile with very few restrictions. It just had to not be in plain view and you shouldn't be committing any other crime, and that was basically it. You could have it loaded, one in the chamber, sitting next to you, sitting between your legs, however you wanted to carry it. And this just simply recognizes that this is a false discrepancy to treat handguns in a car versus handguns on your person, long guns being carried anywhere versus handguns not being carried on your person. There's this false difference between the two, and we do recognize that there is a right to carry firearms, and all firearms should be treated equally.
Look, I talk about this on my NRA TV show just about on a daily basis, and that is this patchwork of gun laws. Texas has them. Wisconsin is going through this very same exact situation. Talk about constitutional carry versus CHL and the patchwork of laws. We talk about patchwork of laws on a state-by-state basis, which is why we need national reciprocity, but the patchwork of laws is on a state basis too. So now say you are open carrying and it starts to rain and you end up putting your firearm in your coat pocket. Well, you've just broken the law if you don't have a CHL in Texas or in any other state. And so you cover up. If it's an open carry state and you wear a jacket and you cover your gun, you've just broken the law. We don't want to put responsible gun owners in a position where they are going to be breaking laws just because they were ignorant of some wild patchwork of laws in their state. So I believe constitutional carry makes sense. But Edwin Walker with Texas Law Shield, I'll tell you the other issue with this that I have a small concern about is that as we push for national reciprocity across the country, where every state would have to recognize the permits from every other state, if constitutional carry starts to become the law of the land in other states, I fear it's going to make it more difficult to pass national reciprocity, because you'll have some of these liberal states that says, well, I don't want to let somebody in from the state of Texas that doesn't need a permit into my state.
Well, and that would be the key, is that there would have to be, the license or permit issued by another state, which is one of the reasons that neither one of the constitutional carry bills that have been proposed eliminates the license program. The license program still exists for purposes who want to take advantage of reciprocity. for people who want to take advantage of the fact that having a Texas license means that you don't have to go through the NICS check each time you buy a firearm from an FSL.
Interesting.
So there are some benefits.
So Texas's constitutional carry bill that's up does not do away with the licensing requirement. You could still go and get a CHL permit.
That is an LTC permit.
An LTC license to carry in Texas. Okay, interesting. Well, that solves a lot of problems, and hopefully other states would do that too, because it would solve that issue that could become a concern. I'm just happy that states continue to push pro-gun legislation, and that has to be the road we go down right now, as these anti-gun groups like Shannon Watts and Moms Demand Action, a bunch of phony fake frauds who were taking their fight. They tried it in Washington. It didn't work. Donald Trump got elected by 100 and something million gun owners in America. And so now what they're doing is they're taking this fight, they're taking it to state, local, and county levels to get regulations put in place to all but put a war on gun ownership, try to make everything they can do to not allow you to buy a firearm in those places. And so we've got to be fighting back, not just by blocking those kinds of policies, but by overwhelming them with pro-gun policies.
Yeah, and they've sort of been emboldened by the fact that the Supreme Court has refused to hear a gun case since McDonald. And basically that's where they realize, just like hopefully all the pro-gun people realize, that these arguments about our Second Amendment rights and how fundamental it is, these are the arguments that have to, by necessity, take place in the state legislatures and don't depend upon the courts to try to enforce things.
Yeah, absolutely right. In the end, though, that Supreme Court is the firewall, which then gets back to Gorsuch, which was the most important reason, I think, to get Donald Trump elected. If you're a gun owner, was to get a pro-gun, constitutional freedom guy on the bench of the Supreme Court, and that's what they got in Gorsuch. Hey, Edwin Walker, always great to talk to you. The organization's Texas Law Shield, helping gun owners all the time, buddy. I appreciate you.
Yes, sir. It's always fantastic to talk to you as well.
All right, you got it. I'm Grant Stinchfield. This is the Stinchfield Report on 570 KLIF. 888-787-KLIF, 888-787-5543. Let's go to Bill Jackson in the 570 KLIF right now, Traffic Center.